I'm a big fan of oversharing.
We're talking very specific things today.
If you want to get promoted, start doing the role that you want to be promoted to.
Automation is the future. We move from there to AI.
Operation Automation is ready to launch. Prepare to optimize your business in 3, 2, 1, go!
Hi there and welcome to another episode of our podcast and the final episode of the Slow Season Sprint. Today we dive really deep into the nitty-gritty of marketing and level up our perspective to the C-level. What's the main purpose of marketing? How to make sure your team will drive revenue? Is it all just about the numbers?
Today, we're joined by Ola, Chief Marketing Officer at GetResponse. Ola is guiding global marketing and growth. She's data-driven, a real ambassador of growth hacking, and knows how to craft successful revenue-driving strategies for established brands and startups. In this episode, Ola shares plenty of tips on how to take your marketing team from almost zero to absolute hero.
Thank you for joining us today. And we'll be talking about a very important topic for every marketer, which is data-driven marketing operations. But before we jump into this super important topic, we have a question we ask every guest. And the question is, which processes in life do you wish you could automate?
Oh, that's a great question. I wasn't actually suspecting that you're going to start with something like big as this, right? So we are talking about life as a general, right? Like not like professional. There were some times, actually, I'm not thinking about it right now. I think my mentality has changed. There were some times where once I was thinking that I would like to automate like eating, right? So that you basically like won't feel hungry and you just actually will like have all of the ingredients actually like automatically delivered, right? But I think like that this kind of thinking right now, once I'm a little bit older, like it's kind of bad because obviously it was related with efficiency and with the fact that, once you get a full day with, many calls, many like things to solve, then you sometimes just forget to eat. So I used to also fast a lot, and there was like a time once I was just starting my day and then like ending my day and having just basically 2 meals, right? So I think this idea came from a little bit of workaholism, and I think it's not like a good idea that I'm supporting right now. However, on the other side, I'm still like really big fan of fasting, and I've learned a lot about fasting, and definitely that's something that I think is healthy. So yeah, like eating like was a thing that I would like to automate like a few years ago, but maybe not anymore. But that was actually the first thought that came to my mind, right? Because usually, in like 90% of situations, I'm just treating eating as something that you just need to do to get all of the like nutrition elements, right? But I also I use this 10% that when I really enjoy cooking and celebrating dinners with my husband, my family. So that's not something that I would fully automate. I think in some scenarios I would like just automate like on a work day scenarios where you are just eating the same repetitive things, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you would leave those like special occasions and then you would actually enjoy cooking, right?
Yeah. I think I would divide it into like these 2 use cases. Let's say, because I'm also this very practical person that I'm basically like buying like the same things, and I could basically eat the same breakfast for like 15 years, right? So I really don't need like diversity for, let's say, breakfast. I get my favorite place where we are going to eat breakfast like 3-4 times per week, and basically since like for 10 years, like maybe not 10 years, but for 4 years as we're living here, we usually order the same thing. So we're just coming there inside and they see us and they're like, okay, we're going to bring you, for my husband, English breakfast, and for myself, avocado with an egg and latte.
The best kind of breakfast.
Yeah. So that's I think the area that is somehow automated already. So I don't need to get like the menu card, right?
Oh, that's great. You're halfway there. We were also talking at some point about smart fridges here at this section. There was a long discussion about how smart fridge is a way to automate the way you're eating.
Yeah, that would be also cool. Yeah, I think some services, I know where you use it a lot, but some services such as Global, like this very quick, like deliveries or gorillas are helping a lot. I'm like super frequent user of it. Having even like some subscriptions there, so that basically, I just having the same list and then ordering like the same list like over and over again, getting delivered. So like that,
so there you go.
That's also partially a solution. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So definitely a part of automation already. Nice.
Yeah.
We're slowly getting there.
Yeah, that's true.
Cool. So, we have quite a long list of questions. It's so good that actually, we can talk to you because we could actually look at marketing from like a certain perspective. Like look at it as like, look at the big picture. So the question that I wanted to ask you is actually, what is the main purpose of marketing in your opinion?
Yeah, I think it's pretty simple. Generally, it's like to generate net incomes for the company, right? So specifically, if you are talking about a company like that doesn't fully have like the sales team, so about the product-led growth company, right? Because if your company is like enterprise-driven, like B2B, then obviously like the sales team, like it's partially covering it with the marketing, and it divides into two different stages, and then marketing's role slightly differs, but eventually, I think like every single marketer should think about the incremental like net income. So I mean here the revenue and like with the best ROI possible, right? So it's this balance between like the revenue and how much money I need to spend to generate that revenue.
Cool. Do you think that it's possible, let's say, to, like build a marketing team and actually have the marketing team be responsible for revenue? So actually, you don't create two teams like the marketing team and the sales team, but you actually create the marketing team with this kind of goal to actually, bring revenue.
Yeah. So it all depends actually on the business model, right? Because I'm like, I've been always like heavy into like business models, like, here at GetResponse, SaaS business model, previously at Uber marketplace business model. And then earlier, actually, that was more of an e-commerce, let's say, like that was still in the tech, but we're basically selling the IoT. So that I would call it rather e-commerce right now. And in all these business models, like marketing was the revenue driver. However, there are like many like business models where marketing is not really actually the key like revenue driver. Specifically, like in some models where you get the distribution networks or purely sales-led driven models where marketing is much more of the lead generation and like supporting the inbound channels while the outbound sales takes 90% of the revenue, right? So I think like that your structure needs to be adjusted to the business model of your company, and I believe that you can just close there are like several business models, right? I would say about 5 different business models that exist generally in the world that you can like categorize all of the businesses into like 5 or 6 business models. And then the relation between marketing and sales like changes a little bit, right? So it's rather the sales. So you are rather actually you just need the sales team and a small marketing team, or it's marketing driven. So you need to adjust it to do your business model basically. But yeah, in these business models like that I mentioned, it is possible actually to build like just the marketing team that's fully responsible for revenue.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you for providing such a wide perspective. I did not see this coming.
Yeah, like it all like the favorite answer for many marketers is like it depends, right?
Yes, exactly. That's my favorite one. So since you started talking about the structures already, we have a very nice question here, and it's how can you create a marketing team that will help you achieve your business goal, whatever it is?
Yeah, so specifically if you're talking about like revenue, it's super measurable, right? So if you really want to create like a team that is driving, like growth or like, specific incremental uplift in something, right? So in signups, in revenue, etc., you need to make sure that you are hiring like, very data-driven people, right? So because regardless of the team specialty, even if it's like content or if it's branding, social, everything can be measured. And you need to like make sure that people who you are hiring are kind of thinking of, how to measure effectiveness of my work and how to find this alignment and connection between, let's say, content or like single like team or single channel or single tactic to this revenue, right? And this is actually the one of the biggest challenge, because sometimes it's, a little bit harder to find this connection, like how does, let's say, branding action will have impact on revenue. But eventually, if you are like enough data driven, if you're using like the right tools and frameworks, you can always like connect it. So that would be my first point, definitely, like make sure that you're hiring like data driven people. And that's something that, like, that obviously that's my personal tip, right? Because I'm also quite data driven, and I just enjoy working with data driven people. So that's and it's easier specifically if the organization is very data driven, if it's very growth driven. So that would be it. But then on the other hand, if you specifically want to achieve like specific growth and like, if you're looking for some, revenue numbers, you want to run an ops heavy company, so operations heavy company, you also like need to make sure that you are building a team out of very handsome people, right? So people who are like, regardless of the level, like really able to like, get their hands dirty and, configure some dashboards and like, do the stuff rather than doing just stakeholder management and creating slides and presentations that majority of the people at corporations do. So, because stakeholder, there are also some places where you need like this perfect salesman with stakeholder management and presentation creation skills at an excellent level, but I think not in a very like agile and revenue driven organizations.
So where do you stand on flat versus non-flat hierarchy in the company? Because I personally have only worked in flat structures. Thanks God. Don't want to change it, but maybe you have different experiences.
Yeah, definitely. Like I really enjoy like flat structures like a lot, and I'm like a huge believer, like giving people's ownership, because this is the only way like to grow, right? Like, but I've been working also at Uber, but basically I left Uber once it became like corporation, right? So the less impact I had, like then I decided, okay, like this definitely not it's not going the right direction also for me. So definitely like I'm a big fan of flat structures, and I think I couldn't find myself in like a huge organization, right? Because I would just get bored with stakeholder management and presentations creation. So I think it kind of depends on your personality, and I think everyone just needs to find themselves in the right place. So that's that. I know also many people, like specifically in the consulting business, that are really used to this, like hierarchy and like the fact that it's working a certain way, or the fact that they are building some presentations and strategies like overnight that then actually, and the strategies are being then put actually on the shelves, right? So nobody actually is like implementing them, but the consulting companies are being paid a lot of money for this. So I think to sum up, it depends on like your personalities. If you really want to like, for startups, for like growing tech organizations, like like a flat structure, I think is much more beneficial. But obviously, like, so you should be giving people ownership, but obviously you need to create some structures, right? You need to make people accountable. And what I've also learned is that you also shouldn't be giving like one person, like, too much scope. Like, I mean here that it's super hard, like for majority of like us, and I think it's just not doable to be focused on everything, right? Like to be focused, let's say, on top of the funnel, bottom of the funnel, like various things. So you need to build in that way that people have ownership, that they have their own like decisions to make, that they feel freedom, that they can experiment with, but within given scope, right? So they know that, okay, this is something I don't need to bother with, right? Because that's also something that is pretty much demotivating people if they think, okay, should I put my hands here or there, right? I don't know, like, like which actually area to move forward. And this is also like pretty bad for many people. So ownership, yes, and like flat structure, yes, but within a specific like framework. Yeah, I would say within a specific framework and scope.
This is great. Especially with like, even if your scope is limited, you have so many things to learn. Like, there are like new tools coming your way. There are like, just changes in the industry or across different industries. So definitely limiting the scope helps you in a lot of ways, just, to focus on something, to be just like better and better at it and not to go crazy. So this is really important.
Yeah, the work-life balance is also like important, right, here in that sense, but also like with prioritization, right? So even like for myself, right, even if I'm like, looking to the MRR, I'm looking to the revenue, it's also that, like I'm like, I need to make sure that I'm focusing my efforts and my focus in a certain time frame into specific, let's say, area, right? So it means that I'm not like, like 100% like available for all of the teams, like even in the marketing team, right? At the same time, there are like some, in this quarter, I'm much more working with the product marketing. That quarter, I'm much more working with, let's say, content partnerships. And in different one, like, I'm focused, let's say, on the churn and the product, let's say, right? Or the cancellation flow. So like, regardless of the level, even if you're responsible, the super broad, you also need to put that yourself into that framework, into that, prioritization, because the other way you'd just get crazy, right? And wouldn't accomplish anything.
Exactly. So here I just, this question immediately pops up, like, okay, so how do you manage this amount of information? Because like for a lot of people in marketing, you have this kind of like a privilege of focusing on the limited scope, but you don't have this privilege, I guess, because you need to just, think about the whole structure and actually focus on data, focus on the processes within multiple teams. So actually, how do you manage the amount of information?
So I think it's about like, let me think, like, three things. So definitely it's all about like scalable frameworks. So that like thinking about the processes in that way that you are, once you see that there is a thing or like a problem that might repeat itself, let's actually build like a scalable framework just to solve it like forever, right? So instead of just fixing something like here and there, you are just thinking like 3 steps ahead, like, okay, like how to build a framework that will basically also solve all of the future problems, right? And what do we need, and we should like be owning it. So that's like one of the things. And then like, copying this framework, like let's think about like go to markets, right? Like let's think the example for this could be the way we are choosing which market to go next, right? Or like how do we launch specific markets? Actually, like it would be crazy just to like reinvent the wheel for every single market. What we are doing, we are basically like, obviously we needed to experiment a lot at the very beginning, but we just actually eventually found this model. Like we know who do we need to hire, like what will be the scope of this person, what will be the things we will launch first, what kind of the tasks need to be performed, what needs to be done on the IT side. There are some local nuances, but basically like this is like copying like the same go-to-market strategy more or less. That's just example for the framework. So then the next time, like I don't need to be bothered with like how to launch this market, but we kind of like know how to do this. The second thing would be definitely like prioritization, and the third thing would be delegation. And by prioritization, I mean that you need to kind of say loud that okay, this is the thing that we need, that we are struggling with. This is the thing that we should be prioritizing with. Let's say we are struggling with acquisition and not with, and the activation is doing fine, right? Like, so do not like spend any time on activation, like have just some alerts configured, but just like let it go for like a moment. Let's focus, let's say, on acquisition, right? So make sure that you are just saying, okay, like, and saying everyone also that this is not the area that we are being focused on. So just, don't waste your time. Don't even check the numbers for a time being. So prioritization definitely here. And the first part, delegation. So that's also really important, just to learn, like, that you are not the person who should solve all the problems. And I'm usually, once I'm working, with the head of my teams, I'm usually also like super willing just to listen to their solutions, because usually once a person like, comes to me with specific problems or like questions, it's like they have in their mind already the answer, right? They have some ideas, and they just like, there's ideas need to be somehow like formed, right? So like, it's not always like my role just to, give them the answer or like give them like the solution, but just, help them to find and like, shape the solution, and then just make sure that they will be empowered enough to execute it. So that's something that I'm constantly trying to do and learning like every single day, like on how I could get better at specific delegation or, scale, making things more scalable.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, that definitely helps. I mean, it makes sense that this is it helps navigate through so much things going on.
Yeah. You just need to also learn how to be assertive, right? Like that's something I'm still learning. I'm not like the best assertive person. I know like many people, like even inside our teams, that are like much more able like to say just no and like be assertive with that. I've learned a lot over the years, and this is like the key skill that you need to have, because otherwise like you would just get crazy, right? So just saying no to things, just saying no to like ideas, and like support, also like being this problem solver and like like solution oriented person rather than just problem spotter. So that's also something that helps. But like just saying no to things is the crucial thing, and that's something like I think you just should aiming to just reach the like the perfect state of it. But yeah, that's a never ending process.
For sure. And you've been talking a lot about scaling processes, also assigning different product owners, project owners for different programs as a good way of basically building a team. But when it comes to companies that already have multiple teams in charge of different processes, would you have maybe some tips on how to align them the best way possible?
So alignment is like one of the biggest like challenge. Basically, the bigger organization gets, like then the alignment and communications like becomes trickier and trickier. And also like keeping the team motivation like high, because at startups of 30 people, like usually CEO knows everywhere, and like CEO is super present, and then basically everyone knows everyone, and it's much smoother. So also like the motivation energy is much higher, right? So once the organization gets bigger, alignment, motivation, and keeping like people connected and keeping people like knowing stuff, it's much harder. That's why you all also like should be making sure that once you're hiring people, that you're hiring people who have like high communication skills, right? Even if you are like good communication skills, even if you're like hiring developers, right? Making sure that they can create documentation the right way, and that they can communicate well. Like checking the soft skills is super crucial. When it comes to the alignment, that's actually a tricky part between like keeping a balance of how to have a specific like and not like a limited number of meetings, because usually we use meetings and some catch-ups to get everyone aligned, and to keep that balance between like keeping everyone aligned, but also like making sure that they are not feeling that they're wasting time on listening, on sitting on some meetings and doing something much more productive. So it's actually a hard one. And I think the key thing, and this is like just ongoing work that you need to do, is just to make sure that everyone like in your team knows that it's important for them to know like what's going on, right? So just that it has impact on their work, and that it's also important like to share information outside. And I'm a big fan of oversharing. So it means that, but I'm also a big fan of oversharing in an asynchronous way, so that people actually eventually, I think that all the meetings would be useless if we would be like, creating like really good documentation and like sharing it actually across all the channels, and then also reading it. Because that's and like, like making sure that we share it kind of everywhere. Because the problem with the asynchronous communication is that it's great. It reduces number of meetings. But the problem is, and that's something I face, that people basically are not like reading the presentations if they're shared asynchronously, if there's like no meeting like around, right? So if there's gonna be like a documentation there, unless you will be really actually related to that project, you usually actually won't go through this video recording or through this presentation, right? That's just a sad like kind of truth, but that's something that I think you should, for one, like actually teach people how to really produce documentation, how to really produce, like slides, overviews that are very visual and easy to consume. And it's a hard thing, right? Like I think it's a hard skill to really like create even one slide that is very informative and that gives you like the right amount of information that is easy to consume, right? It's something that you really need to learn, and you should like teach your team members and train your team members how to do it. But then on the other side, you also like should know like that, hey, it's worth for me just to go through this recording or for this presentation. But obviously you will be encouraged to do so if you know that it's like easy to be consumed. So it's kind of like a vicious circle, I think, because they're like, you don't know whether we should begin with that or this or that. Eventually, like I would be a big fan, let's say, of not having this like, monthly catch-ups, let's say, but rather actually, like doing it in an ASIC way and like spend this time maybe like on, drinking beers together or something. But that just, requires some work to be done. Also like a choose of good tools, right? Like I think there are some tools such as Notion that are like a little bit better than, like maybe not a lot better than Confluence, like Google Slides better than Microsoft like Slides. So also like a choose of the tools that are supporting this easy to consume communication is important too.
Yeah, and I think also one of the solutions could be creating a good space where all of these materials could be hosted so that everyone on the team knows where they can look for them. So for me, in our personal case, that would be Brand folder, because I try to look there whenever I'm looking for something. And basically just knowing that there is one information hub where you are likely to find everything already kind of improves your chances of not trying to contact people and schedule meetings with them. I understand I'm one of the first people who would schedule the meeting still, but at least I would know how to get prepared for that meeting.
Yeah, that's true. But I think the key thing here is like in terms of the communication and really actually getting prepared, like also for the meetings, right? Making sure that you know what is the goal and how to present the information and how to do it in a very visual way. Because usually we are creating not slides even, but we are creating the slide documents, like documents that actually nobody's able to consume. And this is just something skill that we just need to learn how to present the information better and how to become a better presenter, how to communicate better.
Mm-hmm. This is definitely a challenge because the meeting actually allows you to limit the information on the slide and just use it as a sort of like help to navigate through whatever you want to say. But obviously for the person who is reading, it needs to be like a different piece of presentation, right? So
and that's actually the key thing, right? You should be creating presentations that way that a person doesn't need to listen to what you are saying to get the point, right? So the point and the goal should be very visible, and you should just present it like with a graph, making sure that every single slide has like one goal. So I would really actually, and that's something we've been doing as a team, and like actually recently is this like public speaking representation and also presentation as skills training. I think that's something that every single team member, every single person should go through a few times, during the lifetime, just to really get trained in presentation skills, how to create good presentations, like how to not just communicate well, but also how to organize a slide, right? So there are some basic practices and tips that are changing completely the fact whether people are listening to you or not.
Okay. So can I add this communication skills and actually presentation skills to the two skills that you've mentioned, like being data-driven and being hands-on?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely like data-driven, hands-on, and the communication skills are definitely like crucial. Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I totally agree with everything. Just so much information, and I need to process it. It takes time. Also, Friday afternoon, so it's catching up with me. Well, we speak about another very important topic, and that is the biggest challenges in marketing and what we're currently facing, because we're in the middle of the year. What do you think is the forecast for the second half?
Yeah, I'm kind of super happy that we as GetResponse are a bootstrap company. So I really would like actually to be right now at the company that is VC-based in the current economic climate, and facing the fact that we are just starting actually facing the recession, and that we've seen that basically, many tech companies' valuation just, declined over 30 to 50%. And it's definitely, we are somehow just starting to face it, and definitely the company's valuation is gonna even be worse, and we're gonna see much more layouts within the VC founded companies, and many companies that had like ridiculous actually valuations 1 year ago. I think it's gonna be a tough. But then on the other side, like during the crises like this, most of the like key and greatest companies are being born, right? So we've got the dot bubble like 20 years ago. We had in the housing actually a mortgage bubble like 12 years ago, 14 years ago. And usually during this time, and during the first bubble, PayPal actually arrived. During the second bubble, companies such as Uber actually appeared. So I think that during this bubble, also like a bubble burst, also some new great companies will appear. And obviously, it's also like opportunity for companies like, as us like that, because usually it's a time once the market consolidates a lot. So, like other like bigger companies are buying like the smaller like companies, and basically that's one of the effects. But then the other one is that the companies with better financial situation like survive, and companies that were, like too much actually focused on this aggressive growth, spending too much than earning, then they usually don't survive it, right? So basically, the market gets cleaner. I would say that's something I would also expect. So that's actually one aspect of this, like facing this economic crisis and inflation rates. That's going to be really interesting actually to watch. But obviously, like many companies are facing, with the churn rate, and that's also we are also facing with, right? The rising churn rate, actually rising cost of user acquisition, because some companies, such as Google or Facebook, I wouldn't be surprised if we see already that basically the CPCs have increased, right? And Google and Facebook cannot say that, we increased prices, but I think that's something that they will be doing, because, even Facebook shared, Mark Zuckerberg shared 1 week ago that, 30% of the company potentially company employees shouldn't be there, right? So I do expect that we're going to see some also price increases for the major ads networks. And obviously that's going to have huge impact on most of the businesses that are basically acquiring customers through paid ads. So that's something I'm also going to expect to see. But then obviously, after this is the natural cycle, right? After recession, there is also this economic growth. So, and many opportunities arise. So that's really interesting actually to watch. And it's really good also to be at this moment, I get a response that has a very stable financial situation, and we'll get its budgets just to spend and to experiment with. We'll get a cash, so it means that we are not just safe, but it means that it still gives you some opportunities to grow and to experiment with, right? So you don't need to crazily cut budgets, right? But basically you can still hire, you can grow. And this would be kind of opportunity in the longer term also for companies, bootstrap companies as us.
And what about the role of marketing in all of this? Do you think it's in the middle, and in order for the company to survive, marketing operations are really going to become much more important?
Yeah. I think specifically looking deeper into the funnel, right? So if you know that, because usually most of the companies are, and it's the basic mistake, they're usually being focused on the acquisition, right? On the first part mostly, and then they're neglecting the activation, the referral revenue, the latest stages of the funnel, the retention part. And this is something that I think marketing also should kind of refocus, right? Because we know, for example, that the CTR for remarketing ads is 10 times higher than the CTR for prospecting ads. Basically meaning that it's 10 times easier to acquire a customer who has been on your website some time ago, and just to remarket them rather than to try to target a completely new customer. So my advice recommendation would be also to look into the whole funnel, and specifically in the marketing role, just to look into more into remarketing in the bottom of the funnel and see where we can improve the ROI, where we can improve the conversions, right? Maybe we can improve the conversions and the ARPA as well. So I think here being even more data driven and looking to the funnels and the whole funnel and looking into LTV is something that will be even much more significant right now. Because in the events of, in the times of prosperity, you are just losing, you're growing, like, you're looking into the new users acquisition, and that's the key part, right? And then you are not so worried whether they're coming back or not, because you know that you will have like many more customers coming soon, acquired at decent, like low cost. But if that changes, it's not so easy actually to acquire new customers. It's a little bit more like expensive maybe, or people are less willing to buy for your product or to buy for your to pay for your services. Then you need to look into much more into marketing and bottom of the funnel.
Thank you so much. That's a very deep answer as well. Like, we're talking very specific things today.
Cool. So here, you've actually mentioned, how to prepare for the nearest future, what to look at, and actually what to focus on. So what would be like the red flags, if you think like about like, people who are in charge of marketing departments, right? So what should they look for? So what are the like key areas for improvement? What could you spot as a red flag in order to change it as quickly as possible, so that you can obviously, just basically change things for the better?
Yeah, one of the key issues and problems that I'm actually seeing with many companies that I'm also like, usually like talking to, is that once you look into their Google Analytics and you look into like, the default marketing channel split, you see that basically paid search and like PPC is responsible for, let's say, 60% of their like results, right? Whenever these are like revenue, signups, traffic, etc. And then you get direct, right? Direct is also like an outcome from PPC and other channels. So this is actually the major like red flag and like kind of red point once you see that you are paying for most of your traffic, because it means that once you're going to stop paying, then you won't get the traffic. And this is like definitely not very scalable. So, like making sure that you get a healthy channel mix, including like, obviously paid is important, right? But I think like the goal, depending actually on the channel, in e-commerce it's a little bit more, but definitely paid shouldn't be more than, 50% of your channel mix. I would say like best actually if that's not more than, 30-35% of your channel mix. And it's definitely bad if, you don't have organic at all, because organic, like eventually should be, obviously organic is something to build, you're building on in a very long term. But it's the most effective way actually to, acquire users and to acquire new traffic, to get new revenue. And it's a very long lasting. Obviously, it's hard to build and it takes time, but you should be looking into growing the share of the organic in your channel mix. So that will be like number one spot. And I think it's also very often neglected by many companies, because once they get numbers, it's like, okay, right? That's what happens if we stop paying, right? And that's the issue. And then actually another thing obviously would be like not looking at, that's related with what I'm telling earlier, like if, the marketing is just looking into like acquisition and not into like, the next stages of the funnel, that's also super bad. And specifically for many e-commerce businesses, right? So if you are like, starting spending money on acquisition, but your funnel is not optimized, meaning that you are not, recovering abandoned cars, you are not having any remarketing, basically the whole like website experience sucks. It means that, hey, like you shouldn't be spending any dollar on a user acquisition, because you are just losing money. And just to share an example, right? Like, about 70% of users, I think about 70% of users generally, like, they abandoned carts in the e-commerce shops in the United States and in Europe. This is the data from last year. And it shows that, like basically, if you were able to recover like some of them, then you wouldn't need to actually acquire new users, right? So this shows like the scale of the problem, and you really should know your numbers, and you should really be caring about the funnel and the customer journey first, and then like looking into acquisition, not the other way around.
Awesome. Thank you. So here, we've talked briefly about like, the processes that are already running in a company. And I was also curious about your perspective. Let's say that, like a part of our listeners right now would be perhaps like, people who are launching their e-commerce businesses and actually they're about to start. They're introduce their marketing teams, build marketing teams. What would be your tips for building a marketing team, from the ground up? So especially now with all the things that you've mentioned and all the challenges ahead. So based on your experience, what would be your tips for people who are about to run and start a marketing team in e-commerce?
Okay. So the first thing was that I was like asking, I would ask definitely about like the business model, right? Because the B2B like differs a lot from e-commerce. But there's one golden rule there. And the golden rule is all about like, if you are just starting out to build your first marketing team, the first marketing hire, the first people actually you need to hire should be the T-shaped marketers. So they should be people basically who have like overall, like they're not like a really big like specialists into like one particular channel, but the first person you should hire should be much more of this T-shaped marketer who knows like has a good solid foundations, being very of like organic paid referrals, affiliates, and also being very data driven, because you shouldn't be hiring like specialists at the very beginning, right? Because like usually specialists are like really good with a little bit bigger teams where there are specific scopes, where there are specific areas. They actually are really able to grow their areas within the company. But at the very beginning, you need a person who is like kind of, the T-shaped marketer overseeing multiple channels and being able to jump from one thing, from one area to another, because you would need this person, to kick off some, like Google shopping campaigns at the very beginning, then actually jump to email marketing, then jump to some, UX website optimization and like working maybe with developers, and then also like, make sure that they're going to like optimize back like the budgets and etc. Right? So it needs to be a very flexible person at the very beginning. And then once the organization grows, right? Once you are growing your team, then basically you should be moving from these T-shaped marketers into much more specialized people, right? So you should be having a person who is not just actually a specialist, let's say in the performance marketing, but is also happy with the fact that they will like stay with the performance marketing. Because also there's a big challenge if you are hiring like too many too proactive people, let's say, too many T-shaped marketers, let's say, and then your organization grows because everyone then would like to do something like have like a little bit of everything, right? So you need to switch at a certain point into a place where you are hiring specialists who are like really great at what they do, and they would like to become more and more senior within their areas. But basically, like they don't feel the need to take over, from PPC to SEO to like, affiliate marketing, take over like 5 different channels, because you don't need actually, 5 heads of the marketing like in your organization. So that's something really to think of, and to know like how mature your company is, how mature your team is, and that the fact, and just you should be conscious of it, that at the very beginning, like with the first like 3 people, 5 people in the marketing team, you're gonna need completely different setup than once your marketing team is gonna be scaled up to 50 people, right? So these are like just 2 different teamworks, and it's also something natural, and you shouldn't be as a business owner be worried with the fact that with a 5 people organization, once you're gonna scale up to like 5 people organization, once you're gonna scale up your teamwork, that basically like the people, like that you won't be able to like keep all the players, right? Because you need some team members for the, for the start. And you need completely different skill set for, scaling the organization and then for running a mature organization. And that's like completely fine. So you should be just knowledgeable of that it's okay, and that you're going to kind of replace some people because you just need a completely different setup.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Thank you for clarifying that, because I believe that, it's definitely worth to just know that this is the way it is. This is life. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, for e-commerce specifically at the very beginning, obviously this, T-shape, but like then, so we've good overview both on the performance and, SEO and content, good, and then marketing automation as well. And then, like also like once you will be hiring the next person, like, maybe, hire a person who is both experienced in SEO and content to match like, two areas, and like, performance and let's say, data analytics also could be matched. And then, marketing automation with email marketing with website optimization could be also matched, right? So you are at the very beginning looking for people with broader experience and then just, making more and more specialized. Yeah.
I really liked what you said about kind of building from the ground up. So the person that's been with you from the very beginning has the potential to become a CMO or like the marketing lead, whatever. But would you say timeline is a factor here? So the amount of time a person spends on a given project directly affects their promotion, or would it be something secondary? Because I just know companies where people would not get a promotion unless they've been with the company for more than a year. What's your stand on that?
Got it. No, I'm actually a big believer like of like promoting people when they actually show specific skills and like when they show that they are kind of ready, but not just actually ready with okay, yeah, I'm ready with it, but actually showing that they're like. Usually if you want to get promoted, start doing the role that you want to be promoted to, right? So it's not that, and these are actually the most successful like promotions, right? Once you see that this person basically like, he wasn't on that role, but he was actually doing it like that person like for the last few months, and he was doing it proactively, right? So it's super natural then to promote them to this role because he was basically like taking all this ownership, even if that was like beyond his responsibilities. And that would be like my takeaway, right? So I'm not a big fan of promoting somebody just for the sake of like, yeah, you've been here. Yeah, I think I've never like promoted anyone like just for the sake, okay, you've been here for many years and that's why you are promoted, right? Like that's definitely not the case. But the fact that you are already like kind of like you're doing that, and that's actually a kind of natural step for you. And it doesn't matter whether you are here like for 3 months or 1 month or like 1 year, etc. Like if you actually are showcasing that you just came to the company as a specialist role, but you are basically having such a strong skills and like like such a strong like ownership, and that you are basically doing and performing at the managerial level, then you should actually become a manager after 2 months, right? So it's all about like how it's I think all about like the employee and how far they're gonna like just showcase their skills and feel comfortable in the new role.
Great. Thank you for saying that. That makes the future look bright and full of opportunities.
Yeah. But frankly saying, it's not like so easy, right? Because like usually like also very often it's like that people like know that or tell that they are capable of doing something, but you need to kind of like present it like in the real time, and like if you're gonna have like the specific like use cases showing that, hey, I'm doing this already. This is not like something that I will start doing, and this is not just my plan, but actually something I've been doing over the last 5 projects. Then you don't have any arguments, to argue with, right? It's supernatural. So, so that's yeah, that sounds super positive, but actually, like it's not so obvious in many cases.
Great, gotcha. Okay, before we move on to the most important question of our podcast, for the season of the podcast at least, we got one more, which might be even more important to be fair. And it is, can you share any proven marketing processes that drive revenue in your personal experience?
Yeah, so again, actually, it kind of like depends on the business model. So I can share like few here. One actually, the one that actually comes to my mind is more like with the whole business model, not just actually with the marketing, and that's something that is quite new to e-commerces, but it was like for many years actually many B2B and software businesses, and basically that's introducing subscription to your business. And there is actually a specific reason why SaaS companies are so successful, why many like VC funds want to invest into SaaS companies. And the reason for that is that the cash flow for SaaS companies is very predictable, because you've got the subscription and you've got the people actually paying for the subscription. And that's why all of the older tech companies, including Adobe, they switched from like, one payment for the Adobe Photoshop into like monthly or yearly subscription. because then you can basically maximize the LTV and you can actually make your revenue much more predictable so that you will just optimize the churn and like what kind of a revenue you'll get next month and within 1 year. And that's something that investors just love, right? So they really love predictable like business models. So that's a super new thing to many e-commerces. And I'm a super big fan of subscription in the e-commerce, basically meaning that I can just subscribe to just getting, let's say, this wine pack every single month, right? Or getting my contact lenses every single month, or just getting toilet paper every single week. That's something that I'm not having yet, but because I don't know of any companies delivering, toilet paper.
That'd be a great thing, though. That would be perfectly subscribable.
Yeah. I'm subscribed to one of a company that actually offers that. They also offer this bamboo made toilet paper. So it's also this is interesting that how much innovation you can actually put into such a product. So actually this is really cool. We could then use it as a inspiration and supplement for this episode.
You shared with me. Are they delivering to Gdańsk as well?
Not really. I think that they operate only in the US. But I will definitely share a link with you, because I was so surprised actually that, it's when you look at that, you can see that, well, this product, we all know it and it's been here forever and nobody's willing to change, the approach towards that. But boom, it just happens that there is a company that is bringing serious innovation into this field. So this is super amazing.
That's great.
Into this very important field.
Yeah, it's so common to everyone, right? Everyone needs toilet paper. That's true. Dollar Shave Club, many years ago, was the first one to introduce subscription to e-commerce business model with the razors. So I think there's a perfect example. I know, in the US there are many more companies. In Europe, I think in Europe, it's a little bit harder because, you get many, it's harder to scale basically e-commerce company, right? Because, we've got big market in the US, where you can deliver basically, across all of the states, while it's a little bit harder to deliver even across some European Union countries. It just requires a little bit more formalities and the costs are also a little bit bigger. So I think in Europe, it's a little bit harder to scale it, but I'm super excited to see some coffee actually subscriptions that are coming, wine subscriptions, or some cosmetic product subscriptions that are coming there. So really excited with that, and definitely that's something that businesses should be looking into. There are also obviously many more tactics also related with bottom of the funnel, such as making sure that you're first educating, nurturing your customers, and then selling. Using here marketing automation, but specifically using personalized communication and segmentation. And it sounds super cliche, but still many companies are just sending fits them all messages, so and fits them all communication. But so that's definitely something that marketing should look into. And there are many talks about AI and all the things in marketing. But I think the problem is that, we shouldn't be talking about AI and using this real predictive segmentation and predictive personalization if we are not using the rule-based optimization and rule-based personalization. So I think that's you're talking about AI in, let's say, predictive personalization is just, one step ahead of us. And first we need to move forward with just attribute-based and event-based personalization. So, but that's something that definitely can bring a lot of incrementality in the revenue and in tons of incrementality when it comes to conversion rates.
And you have just justified this episode for Operation Automation podcast. Thank you so much for doing that. I think that's a great summary for it all. Basically, automation is the future. We move from there to AI. That makes perfect sense to me.
That's true.
And so one last thing for today. And as you know, this sprint, we're talking about slow season because the episode is going to be released during the slow season. So do you have any good and proven tips for slow season marketing? Because we know life doesn't stop in summer, but it does get a little bit harder for us marketers.
Yeah, my first thought was make sure that your team members are taking some days off. But it's actually like that's a crucial one because like there are some team people who actually are not really using all of the days off, and taking a days off, taking 2 weeks off or even 3 weeks off is really crucial to do, and like that helps with motivation, that helps actually with the productivity. So you need to really care about it, and the summer season is just perfect for it, and you should, as a manager, should be just use it just to push your team members to like spend some time with their family and just go on vacations, right? So that's definitely one something that should be taken care of. But obviously, like, business needs to go on, and I think I would come back here also, like to during the slow season, like you should be potentially much more looking into like some conversion optimizations that would work for you in the longer term, right? So we're looking to the bottom of the funnel. Let's build like some experiments here, because it's also perfect time for running some experimentation. Because during slow season, you are usually don't having any like crazy discounts promo, you don't have any Christmas promo, you don't have any like seasonal boosters that could basically impact the results of the experiments. So I would definitely be focused on running some experiments on your website where we get some stable traffic, running some experiments with with your content, with various channels, with various PPC campaigns, and to treat that as an opportunity, because nothing unexpected should happen. So you won't have any like crazy, like spring promo or like Christmas time. And this is like the perfect time just to get very consistent results out of some experiments that you always want to run.
I'll also dare to add from myself here that it's probably a great time to experiment with automation, because you're not risking much, not as much as you would during Black Friday, for example.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, definitely, like looking to this bottom of the funnel and looking at conversions, automatizations, like that's something that you should do, because like this is that I would say that this should be the time once you are potentially like much more looking into like how to improve your conversion, how to win back customers, how to like personalize something better, and whether that would make sense or not.
As usual, don't forget to check out the show notes for a quick summary of what Ola was talking about and some additional resources. This was the final episode of the sprint dedicated to slow season marketing, which means that once we're back, we'll be talking about something entirely different, and yet still very automation driven.
If you enjoy this format and have topic ideas for the future sprints, let us know in the comments or at podcast@getresponse.com. By the way, we now have a promo code for all of you who want to experience our online marketing platform, GetResponse, in all its glory. Sign up via the link in the show notes, type GR-podcast, and enjoy your very own 15% discount.
And we'll be back very soon to talk about best marketing automation practices for e-commerce. Stay tuned.
Operation Automation is backed up by GetResponse, the marketing automation platform that's been on the market for over 20 years. Subscribe for more juicy insights. And remember, automate, don't complicate.